Okay, we're recording, and I am tonight not with just one, but two guests. We've got Jason back with us. Hey, Jason.
Hey,
And
what's
we also
happening?
have, as you can see there, a guest we've never had before. His name is Dean Lentini. Do I have your name right? Did
You
I
nailed
pronounce
it,
it right?
man. Yeah, you
Yes.
got
You're
it.
Okay,
getting it.
good.
You're getting it.
Because that's
Right
how
from the
I've been
very
saying your
beginning.
name.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen a
That's how I've
couple
been
of the
saying.
videos and it might look daunting, but you nailed it right off the bat. Most people do.
Oh, good.
There you go.
Yes, actually, I'm going to put um, your YouTube channel right up here for everybody to see. Dean Lentini, and you have a channel that says is expository Bible teaching for practical living.
Yep.
It says that you're on Twitter at Dean Lentini, and you are also on Instagram at Grumpy Baptist.
That's right.
So you're a Grumpy Baptist?
I mean, yeah, generally. I think all Baptists are pretty much grumpy Baptists, but I
It's a
took
little
the username
redundant, right?
first. So yeah,
It's
yeah, a little bit.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So Dean is actually up in Canada, and he was telling us before we got started here that he is not originally from Canada. So this
No.
we've been doing a lot of Canadian stuff on this channel, and so you're a really good guest to have because you're in Canada. You're on location in
Yep,
the
boots
place
on the
we've been
ground.
talking about. So everything okay up there?
Some days, yeah, it's been a weird period for Canadian evangelicalism for sure.
Oh man.
I'm sure your viewers know everything that's going on. But yeah, it's been weird to see pastors hauled away. It's been
Oh.
weird to see fences erected around churches and buildings confiscated. Scary times, scary precedents have been made. At the same time, I am somewhat thankful for some of the restrictions that we've had as far as keeping people safe. We've been hit late. I think the U.S. got hit a lot earlier than us, but we got hit a little bit later, and so I've still got a friend even over in Edmonton, still recovering from getting COVID. Almost died. A pastor who almost died, and so he's still recovering. We've had family friends pass away, so yeah, it's been weird to see that balance between the government trying to keep citizens safe as well as maintaining our most basic freedoms. So it's been odd. A lot of churches have been able to continue to meet. I'm in Saskatchewan, Canada, so a little bit different than what's going on. Every province has reacted a little bit differently, and so I think for the most part, my province has been the most open. So a lot of churches around here in my city have been able to continue to meet consistently throughout the pandemic. But yeah, there have been a lot of brothers and sisters around the country that have had to stand up for their beliefs, and I totally respect that. But yeah, we've been praying for the Coates family, we've been praying for the Stevens family, and others across the country, and praying that once all this settles down and we can get back to whatever normal is, that we can all get along. There's been a lot of divisiveness. This has been like the issue of separation for a lot of people up here in Canada. And so I'm hoping that we can get back to a spirit of just love and understanding and get back to, what matters, and focusing on getting the gospel out. Because, it's different studies say different things, but one study was saying that there's just 1.5% of Canadians go to gospel believing churches. So they believe the gospel and attend gospel believing churches. So if you think about that, that's a lot of work that needs to be done just to right up, not too far away from you guys. So I'm hoping that we can get back to it. But yeah, it's been a weird season for sure.
Yeah. And specifically, you are up in this town you were telling us with this
Yes.
moose, Mac the Moose.
Yes, there he
So what's
is
the
in all his
town?
glory. This is Moose Jaw, Moose Jaw,
I see, yes, I see
Saskatchewan.
that. And tell
Oh,
the
Moose
audience
Jaw.
what you were telling us. You said that this moose had to be raised to be higher than another moose.
Yeah, actually, that picture is an old one because
Oh.
we had some guys, they made a moose over, I don't remember if it was Sweden or Norway, somewhere over across the sea. They made a moose and they were saying this is the biggest moose, and I think it was like maybe just 18 inches bigger than Mac, and we were just like, no, this is ours, we're Moose Jaw. So we had to get a little bit bigger of a rack for Mac the Moose. And now, yes, we are proud of our place and knowing that we have the world's tallest moose.
Yes, you will not be outdone.
That's right.
When it comes to the moose.
The glory is all of ours. Yeah.
Now you were talking too about things in Canada and the divisiveness. This is a little bit it's sad and kind of funny. Did you see this? I haven't seen this video? This is some road rage taking place in Alberta, and they're yelling at each other. And watch what happens here. Can you see the big truck just totally slammed into the smaller truck? And then the big truck, the guy gets out and he has a baseball bat, something like that. And he starts to go after the guy. It's the guy in the little truck apparently caused the whole thing, from what the witnesses said, because he had been, just kind of acting like a jerk for a while. And then eventually the guy in the big truck couldn't take it anymore. And that's what happened. So that's in Canada. And someone commented, if people in Canada are acting like this, something's definitely, wrong right now. Because Canadians are usually known for being pretty nice.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. We're usually pretty polite, but I guess someone really had a bad day. Plus, I mean, if you're in a little crossover, I don't know what do you expect when you go to a big truck, right? Like, just know your place, stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane, literally.
He was actually, you're right. He was actually not even in the lane. He was on the shoulder, yelling at the guy in his little tiny RAV4, and the guy in this huge truck is like, I can't take it anymore. Yeah.
Nah, he wasn't gonna have it.
That's right. It's like messing with Moose Jaw's moose, right?
That's right. You don't want to mess with it. We'll just build a bigger one. We'll keep on going. We can go as high as we want. There's nothing. There's nothing there.
I just read, man. Yeah, it's 10 tons of concrete that have gone into this thing. It's pretty it's interesting. We'll have to put it in the comment section or where people.
Yeah, I want to hear in the comments. Any of you heard of Mac the Moose before? And do you also have anything in your town that is your claim to fame? I was asking Jason about where he lives, and he's in Atlanta. And you said the most street names. What was it again about peaches?
Atlanta has the most street names named Peachtree.
Peachtree.
I think it's like 42 peach trees. Man. And there are multiple, like Peachtree Road, like there's multiples of them. So like, well, where are you on Peachtree Road? Like which one? So I think we have the most Peachtree streets in the world. Go figure.
That's awesome. You must be very proud of that.
I don't know why we're proud of that. I really don't. I really don't. I'm embarrassed, but it is what it is.
Well, where I live is in New Hampshire, and we're kind of overshadowed here because we have stuff like maple syrup, but you never hear of New Hampshire maple syrup. You always hear of Vermont maple syrup, right? So we try to have something, we try to have a claim to fame, but we're actually the granite state. That's actually,
yes, there we go.
So our fame is our
everybody's got their
rock.
thing.
I love it.
So I do want to ask you, Dean, though, you went to Canada, and tell us like why, what brought you up there and what you've been doing up there,
Sure. Yeah. So I'm originally from Seattle. Went to Bible college, met this beautiful girl and married her. And she's from Canada. So we spent, I think we spent 4 years as an assistant pastor in Minnesota at a Baptist church. And then we decided after a little bit of spending some time in North Carolina, we came up here, and I was the senior pastor of a Baptist church in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. And yes, that's a real place, and it's our biggest city. But yeah, so we were there for a couple of years, and now we are down here in Moose Jaw at the very beginnings of working on a church plant here in the city. So we're pretty excited about that. We got a lot of family in the area as well, which was part of the decision making of staying in this city. Plus, I mean, we couldn't leave Max, so that's the gist of what we've been doing. Got a bunch of kids running around upstairs, so if you hear them, my apologies.
What are what's the age span of the kids?
We've got a 1-year-old and an 8-year-old. So we've got 3 boys, not a whole ton, but yeah, I mean, they make it seem like there's a whole ton. So, but yeah, we got the 3 boys.
Yeah. Well, those ages is, that's always a lot to handle, but you're also talking about boys, and they do tend to be a little bit on the loud side. That's for sure.
Yes, they do.
That's great. Well, we are going to talk about some controversial things tonight. We're going to talk about pastors and preaching and plagiarism. That has been something that has been on the radar recently, especially with certain pastors in a certain denomination. And we want to hear feedback in the comments as we talk about this. Feel free to leave comments on our discussion. But I'm really interested to talk to you guys about these things. So just so everyone knows, we've got the Grumpy Baptist over here, Dean, and I'm not too grumpy of a Baptist, but I'm Baptist. My background is Baptist. And then Jason is in a Presbyterian church. And so we're gonna just define pastor, elder, maybe some of those terms that are used in the Bible. Yes, and also let's mention deacon. Those are things mentioned in the pastoral epistles.
Sure.
So we want to talk about those offices. So I'm going to give all of us a chance just to kind of chime in on this. But what is a pastor and what is a deacon from your guys' understanding of it? Anybody want to start?
I will. I'll start. Sure. A deacon is by definition a servant. So I am a Presbyterian deacon, and my daughters asked me this one day. We were listening to a song that was outlining the church offices, and my daughter said, "Daddy, why are you not an elder?" I said, "Well, because God called me to be a deacon." Well, what is a deacon? We serve the church body, and we make sure that whether it be taking meals or making sure that elderly persons get their grass cut, making sure that the lights work in the church, and make sure that the steeple that periodically has a rain drip, has a little bit of water leakage, gets taken care of. So we take care of the physical needs of the church building and the church body. That's what we do. And she said, "Okay, I understand that."
Yeah. And that term deacon is based on a Greek word that we just basically transliterate. We don't actually usually translate it as servant, but it basically means servant. Yes. And, we see the word used in different ways actually in the New Testament, but clearly when you get to the pastoral epistles, it seems now like it's a term being used for a certain position or office in the church. So essentially it is a servant. And I think we would all agree on the basic idea of that. Now, some Baptists have in the past, and some still do have deacons kind of overseeing some things. It almost kind of starts to veer toward a pastoral role. I don't know if you've ever seen that happen, Dean. In my church,
absolutely,
in my church, we have elders, and then we have deacons that are much more like what you're talking about. What are your thoughts there, Dean?
Well, I agree with Jason 100%. The role of deacon is literally just to serve the church. So the example that we see very clearly is the founding in Acts chapter 6,
Yes.
when we have a problem, the first real big problem in the church, and that's that the widows weren't being taken care of, certain ones. And so the elders, the apostles, had an idea. Let's create this new office called deacon, so that they can serve the tables and make sure that everybody's getting, the food that they need, so there's no fighting. So the solution to that problem, please the people. And so the deacons are really just there to deal with physical things. And a lot of churches, you're right, Tim, a lot of churches just kind of veer off, and whether it's because they had elders that weren't qualified or were unloving in certain ways, or you had deacons just desire more authority, they kind of just became a ruling board. And that's not what we see in the New Testament at all. We just see them really just dealing with physical things. So if your church maybe has like, you have pastors and then deacons and then maybe trustees, most likely you're kind of dealing with one of those kinds of scenarios. But the trustee is basically what the deacon is when we look at like passages like Acts chapter 6. So I would agree with that 100%. And then I guess if you just launch off of that passage in Acts chapter 6, then you have these elders who are decision makers. But we do see that a little bit tempered by the congregation, the church there in Acts chapter 6, agreeing to the whole thing of having these deacons established, and even having at least a little bit of say, pick out from among you 6 men of good reputation and all of that. So they at least had some decision making there. So I would say that a pastor is an elder, that these are synonymous terms, and we can go to passages like in 1 Peter, we see those terms used interchangeably. So if someone is an elder, I would say that they are a pastor, and with that comes the whole idea of shepherding. That's really the main concept that we see with pastors, is that they are to shepherd. So they are to primarily feed the congregation through preaching and teaching. Then they are to care, just like any shepherd would. They would care for the sheep, and we see that really through things like discipleship and just loving on the congregation, being there at those crisis moments, and just loving them, and then protecting, from wolves, or from false teachers, from even sin, schemes of the devil, to be there and protect the congregation. And that's really how I view what a pastor is.
Mm-hmm. I prefer the term bishop when people are talking about my position.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
No, I do want to mention, I'm glad you brought up a couple of terms. So we've got elder based on the word presbyteros, which is where we get presbytery or Presbyterian, right?
Yep.
Jason knows that. We've got, I think it's poimen, which is shepherd, pastor. So we've got that term used for a leader, but we also have episkopos, which is sometimes translated bishop or overseer. And that's actually one of the terms used in the pastoral epistles next to, when it's talking about the offices, it has the bishop or the overseer and the deacon. So I would also add that term to what you're talking about.
Sure.
And an overseer kind of speaks to another aspect of the role, which is almost how some churches use deacons, right, to kind of oversee things. But I think the pastoral role could also include this idea of overseeing, supervising, just having oversight as to what's happening in the church, care for the church. It's not just a managerial position, because there's also that relational pastoral aspect, but it's also elder. And I know again, Jason, that's a term you guys specifically use a lot, and you guys probably maybe have some distinctions between certain elders and other elders, maybe in your group. So how does that work?
So we do have, for lack of a better term, I guess, to give like an idea, if you had a chairman of a committee, that chairman of the elders is called the ruling elder, and the chairman of the deacons is called the, I don't know what we call Spencer, but he's our head deacon this go around for this class of deacons. So they're basically just responsible for doing the whole collaboration between the deacons and the elders, because the elders come up with the budget for the year, what they're going to spend monies on, and the deacons approve said budget. So there's a checks and balance. So sometimes, sometimes we have to fight out, why do you want to spend X amount of money for this, or we don't approve this amount of money to pay this person, or so forth. So I think it works out because it allows us, no one person has the checkbook. There's 13, 14 men that are responsible for making this decision. So perfect example, when Smyrna Presbyterian decided to open up in May last year, it wasn't our pastor and our associate pastor who said, oh, we got to open up the church. We decided to open up the church as the leadership of the church. So it wasn't just the deacons, it wasn't just the elders, it wasn't just the pastor. It was all of us that approved and thumbs up that we wanted to open up the church. So that's how we do our deacons and elders, and that's how we also hold each other accountable, little checks and balances. So nobody has a checkbook and is running around just spending money willy-nilly. We all have to approve it.
So one of the distinctives of the Presbyterian church model is that you have these groups of men, you have these elders, and like you said, there's accountability there. We sometimes call that the plurality of eldership,
Yes.
that more than one. Now, in some churches, it's more of that episkopos orientation, where you actually have like one person who's the point person overseeing even sometimes different churches. Baptists were we're much more autonomous, and I think, Jason, this is something else you might be able to speak to. You guys might even have elders outside of your local church, or some sort of a presbytery outside of your local church that also kind of oversees things.
Not overseas as much as collaborate, but I know we have a presbytery that we're a part of. And I admit I'm trying to get my bearings as a fairly new Presbyterian, and we'll talk about that later, Dean. Fairly new Presbyterian, and definitely a wet behind the ear deacon. So I just like to worry about what's going on at 3130 Atlanta Road rather than all the things that are out involved. I plan to be more involved outside of our church and interacting with our Presbyterian and stuff like that, and other churches that are a part of our Presbyterian, just to meet them and find out what they're doing, how their deacons are doing this thing, and so on and so forth. But I tend to focus on my little job right here and try to do that job with excellence, because there's still people in my church I don't know by name yet. So some of the larger macro stuff, I let people tell me about it. That sounds great. We just had General Assembly last week. Yeah, that sounds really great. I'm gonna watch the videos about it, but I'm really focusing right here because I want to do a good job for these persons right here that God has called me to be responsible for, or to help be responsible for.
Okay.